this is Anna from Savat Realty. Today I am going to talk to you about the farm life in Portugal. So for those of you who don't know, Savat Realty is a relocation and investment agency that helps expats move to Portugal in a sustainable way, both culturally and financially. So we are very concerned about knowing our clients in a personal way and tailoring that to their needs, so they end up in the right places and they settle into our country in a way that is beneficial for both them and the locals. So if you are interested and if this sounds like a good concept to you, feel free to check out our website where we have a lot of information and we are very transparent in www.savatrealty.com. So today's topic, the farm life in Portugal. So there are a lot of people that come to Portugal with the dream of owning a farm and having the farmland. Is this for you? I don't know, is it? So basically, although many people wouldn't guess, I actually grew up in a farm, a very big part of my life. And it's definitely a great environment. But if you want to come to Portugal and buy a farm, there is a whole range of things. So you can go to a more interior secluded location where you can probably buy a farm for 100,000 or even less maybe. And you, however, will be very isolated and you will not be close to services and so on. But there are farms and country properties all over Portugal. So if you go to a location, I don't know, like Montijo, that is close to Lisbon, then the prices are going to be a lot higher. So maybe in this location you will be finding something between the 400 and 1 million, depending on what you're looking at. If you are looking at owning a dreamy wine property in the Douro Valley, well, maybe you will be looking at 500,000 to 2 or 3 million, because that area is quite expensive. As you know, the Douro wine is very known internationally, so vineyards are actually quite expensive. So there is a whole range of properties that you can be looking at. And then, of course, it's a lot of work to own a farm, and a vast majorities of the properties you will be finding, especially on the lower end pricing wise, will be rather run down and in need of a lot of work. And this work will probably come out of pocket to you, because although there are incentives for agriculture and so on, these incentives are not exactly for the repair of the property itself. There are some incentives for isolations and solar panels and that sort of thing, but they are not going to pay for the whole thing or anything like it. So you do need to have some budget, and you also need to have a lot of time and willingness to work. So there are a number of things that you can do with farms, of course. I have a lot of clients that look at rural properties and are planning to do retreats or just have their own properties. I had a client that bought a property with a big plot of land where he wanted to have a vineyard just for his personal use. All of these things are very much on a personal basis and what you are looking for particularly, but generally the easiest ones to run is if you buy something just to have a small production of vegetables and fruits. And generally fruit trees are fairly easy to keep. So if you are looking at and buying a property with some plot of land, let's say like 1,000 square meters or something, and you have a number of fruit trees on them, it is very common for you to see plots of lands with lemon trees, oranges, tangerines. So what is that called in English again? Oh, I can't remember the name of the fruits in English right now. So, wow. There's a number of fruit trees that are very common here in Portugal, you know, pears, apples, and so on, and you will be finding properties with the mature trees fairly easily. And then when it comes to vegetables, you will generally have to grow them yourself. So, and that's actually a lot of work, you know. Even my family, we own two farms in the Aveiro area, and then my uncle owns a farm in the Douro Valley. And it's a lot of work to take care of those. And even if you want to have, you know, your own small self-production, I don't know, with lettuces and beans and zucchini and whatever, there is still a lot of planning that needs to go into it. There is the crop rotations, you have to plant things at the right time. It's very much a full-time job, and of course the self-sufficiency is very positive. It is a full-time job, and it does require you to be there. Well, it can be away for like a week, but you still have someone to take care of it. You cannot be away for months, otherwise your crops will not take, unless you of course have someone to take care of the garden. But once again, if you are looking to do things yourself, it's a lot of work. You know, it's great to be self-sustainable and to have your own crops, but it's also a lot of work. So, regarding the property itself and fertility, the most fertile zones in Portugal are actually the north, so Braga and all that north area, because you have a lot of rain, so the grounds are quite fertile. And then the Aveiro area is also quite fertile because it's a swampland, so once again a lot of water. The Douro Valley, it's fertile, but it's actually usually told that the grapes like bad soils, so it's a very rocky soil and very hard to work with. And keeping a vineyard is a lot of work and a lot of professional work and a big investment, so do keep that in mind if you want to do something like that. And then you also have another area that is very known for agriculture in Portugal, that is Alentejo. Alentejo is actually not a particularly fertile area, but it's very known for specific kinds of cultures, like olive oil, growing olive trees, growing cork trees, and recently they have been making mass plantations of avocados that are actually ruining the soils, because they have been doing that industrially with, of course, watering systems and so on, and no rotation. So once again, important thing, if you want to have a sustainable farm, you know, you have to know when to plant things and what to rotate, otherwise you'll ruin the soil, which is what happens in most industrial production. So keep that in mind. The vineyards are kind of an exception, because like I was saying, vineyards and grapes actually like bad soil. So that's the thing. Another thing that you need to consider is that you actually need a license if you want to sell the things you grow. And it's actually a pain in the ass to get, because you need to get a certified kitchen and a certified process and so on and so forth. So it's generally not worth it to do it for individuals, and it's particularly bad to animal productions, which makes sense, but it's really very restrictive in a bad way, so it makes it much harder to have small productions in Portugal because of that. So that is also something that you need to consider. If you want to make small production and just distribute it among friends, that's fine. But if you want to set up something for sale, then that's going to be a whole other bureaucratic mess that you will need to go through, and I very much advise you to get an agricultural consultant to get all of that sorted, because it's a pain in the ass. Trust me, I've tried to do that with one of my farms and actually gave up on it. So another thing is, of course, the animals. So if you want to have animals in your farm, you can acquire animals fairly easily on local farms and from local producers, but once again, If you want to sell animal products or animal meat, it will be very, very, very hard to get everything licensed and according to hygiene standards. So generally it's not worth it unless it's a big production. There are also a number of grants usually granted to agricultural support and production. At the moment, because the Portugal 2020 program has closed at the end of last year, and the new Invest 2030 program has just started, there are actually no agricultural programs open at the current moment. So we are on April 2024, but there are a fairly large amount of grants predicted, budgeted towards agricultural support. So in Portugal, 2020 program, so that was for the past 5 years, we had 4.9 million, I believe, in agricultural support. Do keep in mind that the way that the grants work in Portugal is that although you do have an amount that we call fundo perdido, that is basically money that you don't need to return to the state, in most cases you do have to have a decent amount of the capital yourself, and most of the granteds are given in a return kind of way. So basically you pay for it and the state gives it back. So generally you have to have the money yourself, and only in those cases where you have like 50-60% fundo perdido, then the state does advance the money in installments according to development of the project, but they are very known to be late. So do keep that in mind. It's generally much better to have the capital yourself, and then eventually the state will give it back to you. So generally, even if you go through and apply for public grants, which can be great, see it as a refund. It's usually a much better way to look at things. So that's pretty much what we have regarding the building a farm. I actually want to do another video eventually with a lady that actually runs a farm here in Portugal, and just a back and forth conversation on that experience. As I said, I also grew up in a farm a big part of my life, and I know how hard things are. There are a number of programs in Portugal that, for example, Jovem Agricultor, so the young farmer, and that is basically to incentivize the new young generation to go into farming. Once again, these programs are actually fairly restrictive and do require you to make a fairly decent amount of the investment yourself, usually around 40%, which is makes a lot of sense. But then they also tie you to the project for 5 years, and you can also not have another job for 5 years. So that's a bit of an issue. And generally, when it comes to agriculture, you need to that depends of course on the crops. There are crops that are faster to grow, but if you are looking at like fruit trees and long-term crops, it takes a really long time for you to get the return on investment on the investment you made. So yes, there are a lot of things to consider when you are considering owning a farm. We at Savat can help you with a number of them, but it's generally better to get a specific advisor when it comes to actually planning the crops and plantations and rotation and all of that. We can help you with the property size, so matching the property to your particular needs, figuring out if the fertility is adequate, and generally help you make a plan around things. But then for the specifics, you generally need someone specialized in that area. Of course, it depends on the kind of project you have. If it's just a personal thing, then generally you can make a bit of trial and error and figure things out. And if it is a more investment with a return thing, then it will be a much more complicated process, of course. So I believe this basically covers the relevant things around owning a farm in Portugal and how things work. I don't think I forgot anything important, but if I did, please do let me know in the comments. And once again, we are here every week, so feel free to subscribe to our channel. We share a lot of information about living in Portugal and moving to Portugal that can be useful to you. Also, feel free to check our website in www.savicatrealty.com. For those of you who subscribe to our newsletter, we have a free Move to Portugal guide with a lot of useful information available. Once again, you just need to go to our website and subscribe to get this guide. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and to see you all again next week. Bye!